Hey everyone, welcome back to this lecture. Right now we're going to learn the basics of texturing. So if you want to add the textures to this cube, if you want to add different colors or different images, it's pretty easy to do, but we cannot really see everything inside the solid view. So what we can do is enter the material view over here and then change the textures. Now what I recommend if you're a beginner is leave this window as it is. But if you want to work with textures, you can go ahead and click on this shading workspace. So I'm going to click on shading. So if I click on the shading workspace, it's going to jump me to shading. You might have different windows here, but don't worry about it. It's not important. What we mainly want to focus on is this viewport here, which has this HDR sky around it. I'm going to explain what that is later in the course. And we also have this thing over here, which is the texturing and the node workspace. Now, if I want to, for example, change the color of this cube, I first need to add a material. I'm going to tell Blender that the cube has a material. So what I want to do is click on new over here, click on the new material, or alternatively, I can go here and then press on new. It's going to create a new material for the cube. Now, as you can see, I have these two nodes created. These are called nodes, and nodes are used to create a bunch of different materials, different effects in Blender. Now, nodes are pretty hard for beginners. Even for me, I struggle with a lot of advanced nodes, but don't worry, you don't have to be advanced, you don't have to be pro to create basic textures. Now, first thing you noticed is this thing right here has different properties. And this principled BSDF node, if I zoom in, right, it's pretty much the same thing as here. But we mainly need to manipulate the nodes from here because we have a lot of control. You can go ahead and do it from here as well, but it's going to be pretty tough if you're a beginner. So we can just ignore this space for now and we can go ahead here. So I want to show you the navigation in the node editor. It's pretty much the same as in the 3D viewport, right? So you can zoom in and out on different nodes. You can click your middle mouse and drag from right to left. Again, zoom in and out, drag right to left. And if I want to, for example, if I'm lost, I can select any nodes. For example, I'm going to select the principled node and I'm going to press on numpad period and it's going to frame select and it's going to jump right in front of it. So that's pretty much the basic navigation you need. And if you're very, very lost, for example, if you have a lot of nodes and I moved over here, what I can do is press on home key. If I press on the home key, it's going to jump me back in the starting position. I can do the same thing with the viewport. If I go on the left side and I'm lost, I don't know where my cube is, I can press on home. And it's going to jump me back in front of my selected objects or in front of my objects which are in the scene. Now, if I want to change the color of this cube, that's pretty easy. First, make sure you're in a material view, which you should be if you enter shading mode. Then select the base color and then pick any color you want. I'm going to pick, for example, blue. Then it's going to create a simple light blue color. Now, principled node has a bunch of different options, and they're very, very cool options if you want to do realistic stuff. But for Minecraft, you don't have to know the ins and outs of it. But let's play around with them. For example, if I want to make this cube reflective, I can go ahead and turn down the roughness. By default, roughness is 0.5. But if I left click and drag the slider up or down, right? If I drag this down, it's going to be very reflective, like a mirror. If I drag this up, it's going to be very non-reflective. Now, if I drag the roughness and then drag down the roughness and drag up the metallic, it's going to give the appearance like the cube is basically metallic. A lot of Blender pros advise that you want to keep the metallic either 0 or 1. You don't want to keep the metallic 0.6, 0.5 because that's going to be non-realistic. But you can do the opposite with roughness. You can leave it at 0.5, 0.7, whatever. But metallic is usually advised to keep it either at 1 or 0. But if you're working with Minecraft textures, again, you don't have to know all of these. You don't have to change all of these because we're going to be using an add-on called MCPrep, which is going to do all of this for us with few clicks. We also have different properties over here. We can do transmission to make it transmissive, reflective. This is pretty good if you're working on a water shader, for example. So if I turn up the transmission, turn down the metallic, and turn down the roughness, this is going to be very reflective like the water, and it's pretty good to do the water shader with that. Now I'm going to Control Z this a bunch of times, and I'm going to go back to my blue color, which I had before. So I'm going to turn this to 0, turn this to 0.5, and then I have my blue cube over here. Now we can do more advanced stuff with the color. We don't have to leave it as flat. What we can do is, for example, create a new node, and I'm going to show you how to create new nodes and connect them, but I'm going to do very basics of that. So first I'm going to go here, press on Shift A, and then search for color ramp. So click on color ramp. And then color ramp allows us to do a lot of different cool things. Now, if you want to move the nodes around, you can select them and then press on G, or you can select them, click and hold the mouse and then drag them around if you want to. Now, if you want to connect different nodes together, I can use these slots. Nodes have a lot of slots over here. So I'm going to click on this color slot, left click, hold, drag, and then connect it in the base color. Now, as you can see, my cube went back to gray because I did this gray color, because the color ramp has this gray gradient. Now I can go ahead and select this black slider and then move it on the right side. Now, if I want to change the color of it, I can go in the bottom and then make this, for example, bright, and then make this red. Now I can go ahead and do the same thing with the white slider. I can select this, drag it on the left side, select the color, and then make it, for example, blue. And it's going to create like this nice gradient between blue. So if I drag this on the right side, I'm going to have more red. If I drag this on the left and drag the blue on the left side, I'm going to have more blue. Now, if you want to create like a cool gradient texture, what you can do is select the slot on next to the color ramp, left click and drag this, and then search for gradient texture, and then press on enter or select the color, right? And now if I release it, if I left click to confirm, as you can see, I created this pretty nice gradient. So the way we can control it is, again, by controlling these sliders. I can have more red, more blue. And a cool thing we can do is I can go ahead and then click on plus button, and it's going to create a brand new slot in the center. Now I can select the slot and then change the color entirely, make it yellow, and it's going to create like pretty nice gradient. Now, this is super basics of the texturing. You don't have to know everything else. We're going to go ahead and in the future, when we're going to create thumbnails towards the end of this course, this is going to become handy. You can use gradient texture and color ramp to create a lot of cool effects, a lot of cool 2D planes. You can place in the background of your characters to create cool thumbnails, make them stand out from the background. So that's pretty much what I wanted to show you with the basics of texturing, and we're going to move on to the next lectures.